Yeah, I kind of became like a almost metal hero in a sense because I got the charms that would allow you to basically do the suit up, cast off thing going on where you could just instantly don your armor.
Yep.
So I could actually use much heavier armor much easier than pretty much anyone else.
Yep. My armor was always pretty light. I was thinking I was more into dodge. And my whole thing was Scarlet learned of a treasure of Master of the Eternal Golden Paradise, which he referred to as the One Piece. And he left a note behind in his traditional style of, I left everything I own in one piece, but you'll have to find it first, kind of thing.
No, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. Yo
Yo
ho.
ho. And so the reason we were able to get around as easily as we did is because I had a fairly large ship, and every single crewman on my ship was named Tom. And if you guys have never seen Muppet Treasure Island, it is a fantastic film. And you owe it to yourselves to watch it, because it was a huge influence on how Scarlet interacted with her crew.
Hmm.
And I tried to play her as a very passionate, over the top, and the early legs of the game, I kind of tried to go into like a seduction specialty, but honestly, I felt a little gross, like playing that way, so I eventually kind of let it slide, and she became just more flirtatious, but in a more generalized sense. I think the GM later mocked me for that decision, but it's like I don't know. I felt weird and I didn't like doing it, so I ended up changing course a little bit midstream. So her whole thing was she was a dance fighter, so she could actually attribute things like her performance skill into her sword play because she was basically doing the same kind of movements just for the sake of combat. And our fourth member and most disappointing member was Maxwell.
Which is ironic that you mentioned it. Oh, I felt gross and I stopped doing seduction when basically he died because of you and your
Because I kept okay.
daughter.
Here's the thing with Maxwell. Okay, here's the thing with exalts. Actually, every single exalt has a curse of passion placed upon them, and they will have something that is unforgivable and drives them berserk. It's the great
Not
curse.
well, not berserk. Basically, they have much like the great heroes of myth. Each one of them kind of has a flaw which will lead to their ruin. And so, for instance, Taiga, who is would get very upset when innocent people would get hurt. And so she would actually kind of fly into a not a berserk rage, but she would just kind of have the you know, Kenshiro, oh, my tears are flowing. I must, I get so angry that I kind of just flip around to being just incredibly cold-hearted. So you get this very, very warm-hearted person who just goes absolutely livid with rage. Um, you get like I had another character who would just become inconsolably grumpy when they got insulted.
That was Valentinian, and it almost happened actually, because we had that
Yeah,
one person that just kept mocking you to your face.
yeah, yeah. They would. I kept getting insulted, and I just was like, oh, sod you with an iron cube.
It was just Scarlet eventually just hugged Valentinian. And for reference, Scarlet was supposed to be very tall, even for like this particular party. So Valentinian's face came to about chest level, so you can kind of put together what was happening.
Yes.
And so Scarlet's whole thing was she would fly into a temper tantrum and just kind of fall on her belly and start slamming her fists and feet on the ground and like throwing a very childish tantrum, which I think only happened once in the campaign. Maxwell's was anyone who in any way dishonored or disrespected his wife slash lunar mate Selene, because creativity is hard, who was a barn owl lunar, wasn't it? Was it just an owl? My note just says owl. I don't know the specific type of bird.
I think she might have been a horned owl. I don't honestly remember.
Yeah, creativity is hard class. And just as a joke, like the way I played Scarlet, she was very, very jokey, and she liked to tease people. Like, she called Valentinian Valley the entire campaign. I don't think she actually called him Valentinian at any point.
No, you did once. You
Oh,
did
did I?
once when you were like, I treasure you. You're my friend, Valentinian. It's like, oh my god, you used my name.
Oh, that's that's right. They had a moment where Scarlet actually quit being a pest for 5 minutes and was actually like genuine with how she felt. And Maxwell tried to be a solar sorcerer, but ultimately he was just kind of a surrender monkey. And just teasingly, Scarlet would hit on Selene. And it's like, oh, your husband's not that strong. You should just like hang out with me instead. And Selene didn't even take it hard. She was just kind of like, oh, you. But the entire time I was tripping his limit trigger over and over and over again without even meaning to.
And the thing is that he never told us, and we never saw his sheet. So
We
how were
didn't
we?
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't know. I wasn't doing it to be malicious.
And here's the thing too. He never told us. Like, he could have stopped us after a session, been like, guys, this is my limit trigger. I don't appreciate what you're doing. He never did that. And so in the middle of one session, he blows up, attacks Scarlet, and just unloads on Valentinian. He's like, you never defended me. You never did it. It's like, dude, you never told me that this was a thing. I wasn't the one hitting on your wife, okay? I'm searching for my wife. Why would I hit on yours, okay? I'm a knight of the realm. I am a defender of the weak. Why would I do that? And he just starts attacking both of us, and we're like, you know what? We're going to defend ourselves. And I believe you just callously, just kill him while deriding him.
I did, but here's the thing. I paused the game out of character. I was like, okay, are you okay with this? Scarlet may be spec'd for social combat, but I can easily overpower and kill you. I want to ask your permission before I engage in lethal combat. And he said, yeah, it's okay. I need to make a new character, and Maxwell isn't really doing it for me anymore, so this is fine. I got his express verbal consent. And so Scarlet, basically dances around him the entire time, mocking him relentlessly. And ultimately, according to notes, I lopped his head off with a hearty ahoy, F-boy, as her final words to him.
Jeez.
Jeez. And it didn't help that she was already kind of sore at him in character, because we had gone to a place called Dombell. And Dombell is an island nation, very much dedicated to being swole and being the swollest.
Yes.
And
Your
around
social
this,
standing was entirely based off of how swole you were.
right. And so Scarlet was like, aha, this is an opportunity. I can go get some protein-packed foodstuffs from a nearby area. I want to say we went to Flotsam, which is one of the... I think that was a homebrew place, right? That was something you and
Yes.
Noodle made.
Pretty much the vast majority of the places we went to were homebrew.
And so I went off and was like, okay, I'm going to go do a trade run, and I'll be right back. While I'm gone, Maxwell, of all people, somehow became king, and he instituted socialism, meaning that all the cargo that I went out of my way that otherwise would have sold for huge profits, all bottomed out and flatlined. Oh my gosh, so she was already kind of mad, and thankfully Valentinian took over.
Yeah, basically, yeah, no, what happened is everyone's like, well, because eggs were at a premium, and you were like, oh yeah, boy, I'm gonna get some eggs, and so then you load up on eggs, have an entire shipment, your ship is entirely full of eggs, and then he's like, eggs are free, and that bottomed out. The state would pay everyone eggs. And you were like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I was gone for like 3 in-game days, and you do this to me.
Well, to be perfectly honest, none of us really handled Dombell well, because as I recall, I'm like, okay, so Maxwell, say nothing if you want me to take over, and he wasn't there
Yeah,
at
he
that
wasn't there
session.
for that session, right?
So I took over. I started like, okay, look, we're gonna do this. We're gonna not do the eggs are free thing. We're gonna rebuild the areas. Because this entire country was racked with civil war. We're like, we're going to organize a standing army to defend ourselves. We're going to initiate, a agricultural policy so that we're going to try and rebuild, people's homes. We're going to make this happen. But then immediately after that, one of the other warlords in the area attacked, and I'm like, I need to go to the front. I'm a warrior. And while that happened, my lieutenant is like, hey, Valentinian, Lord Valentinian, say nothing if you want me to take over. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even mad. I'm just kind of impressed that you dared to use my own tactic against me.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about this. I'm glad I had this part written down. Because it turns out Maxwell also had a cult. And if you're
Yes.
noticing a trend in characters who should not have the cult merit, but for some reason do, congrats. You now understand why that merit is banned.
Yeah. And it turned out later I actually had a cult, but it was literally it was all the children of a particular area thought that my character's prior incarnations were actually like this horrifying
Like Krampus
monster
figure.
that stalked the woods and like carried off children who were bad. And so children at night while they were saying their prayers would be like, please, Valentinian, don't come and take me. And I'd be like, why? I'm defending you against the actual things that stalk in the night. And you're thinking I'm the boogeyman? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, then we went to the wild, which is this kind of other space outside of creation where rules don't really apply.
No,
And
there are rules. It's very meta and very postmodern. The entire thing being with it is basically you treat everything that's happening like a story. And so um, because basically the creatures that exist out there in the wild are entirely made out of stories. So yeah, things get very, as I say, meta narrative-y.
yeah, I have a note, the wild, it's a hell of a drug.
Um, oh yeah, because I believe I was actually storytelling for that bit. So you actually encountered the manifestation of the fears of all the children as this horrifying like dark night figure
Yep.
that was chasing your ship over the water as this like horrifying ghost knight was running after you.
Yep, and I was the one who had to kill it because everyone else wussed out, and I kind of had this, oh, poor Valley. I didn't know he felt that way. It was like, as it's breaking apart, it's like, I just wanted to be loved.
Yep. Yep. Valentinian, was a yeah, he was a big softy. He was doing what he did because he cared. But,
Malgigi was quoted as saying, curse my poops once, shame on you. Curse my poops twice, you're an effing dummy. Nice.
yeah, Spalkiki, pretty much all of the Warriors of Light were kind of smart Alex in their own way. Malgigi was a kinder man than Kaijan, who Kaijan was just savage.
He kind of was. Oh, this is when we found Stockholm Dinosaur Maiden.
Ah, yes. Magpie,
Yep.
who was Maxwell's new character, his player's new character. And
Do you want to tell this story, or should I?
I mean, it basically, I'm just going to say it, it was just effectively him trying to play Taiga. It was the same character as Taiga. They used the same fighting style. They used the same, he attempted to do the same thing as Taiga. And it's like, look, dude, I know, I know copying someone, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but this is ridiculous. He even had the Mouse of the Sun the same as Taiga did.
Yep. Oh,
And
I have some notes on the specifics. She was a Zenith caste with the stats of a Dawn caste. She was supposed to be playing a stupid barbarian woman, but had lore of 3, which is actually one higher than Scarlet had, who did have a formal education growing up. Several docs in
yes,
medicine, with Tomb Raider with a love of artifacts, and a gourmet chef.
yes, and the entire thing with this being is that she was somehow a wild child who had no formal schooling, and yet she somehow was incredibly well educated without actually being an autodidact. She just somehow was in this situation whereupon this dinosaur goddess who had a distinct hate for humans. This was not a character we made. This was a character in the lore who hated humans because the humans actually drove her dinosaurs extinct. The entire thing being is that this is not like actual history where dinosaurs, were millions of years before human. They all kind of exist in the same time and space. And a lot of the creatures who went extinct were because of the nature of humans and exalts. And she hated humans because of that. And so she has developed a taste for human flesh. And the entire thing being is that, she encounters this little human girl and goes, instead of just making a panini out of her, she goes, I'm going to eat her. But, I'm going to first teach you, multivariable calculus first. Because that's a thing that
Yep.
people do with their sandwiches. They go, all right, class, I'm going to teach you this. Be very careful. I only eat highly educated, lunch meats.
Well, of course. You don't want to eat the dumb ones. That lowers your
Yeah.
intelligence stat.
Yeah, so it's like,
And
are
she
you kidding me?
and she didn't really contribute anything till the game was almost over. Because I think, let's see, next in my notes
We
is
sold her to the Ebon Dragon.
for a day, yes.
Yes.
And next we met Esha
And
May.
that drove him up a wall because everyone was making innuendo about it, and then it turned out they were actually playing Smash
Soup.
Brothers Brawl.
Yep, they're playing Smash Brothers Brawl, and the Ebon Dragon kept playing as Meta Knight. Let's see.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about Gwen. We had a moment when Dietaku and Noodle swapped places, so Noodle could actually play for a little while, and he made wasn't he a sorcerer? He was an intelligence spect exalt.
He was a bard. Basically, he was from a homebrew culture of Celts who basically lived as Tarzan warriors in these jungles, and he was a bard slash Scarl of their kind of warrior noble society. They were really weird because the entire thing being is that they had like this clan society whereupon they had like 7 great houses that pretty much everyone in their culture belonged to. You had to live in a particular area. You would fight only in particular parts of the year. Otherwise, you would actually play games of hurley, a actual sport that they played in Ireland, and you could not actually use horses as beasts of burden. horses were citizens too, because the entire thing being is that the lunar goddess that ruled their area actually had a brother who was a horse god, and so horses were people too, don't you know? And there were some
Seems
really
legit.
weird things going on. And so yeah, he was basically this like singing, poetry spewing badass who just he kind of had a sharp mouth on him too. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, he did. He gave everyone crap. Then we met Esha May, who was the kind of de facto ruler of this one small village that we visited in the north. And I forget exactly what provoked it, but ultimately Esha May and Scarlet hook up. And
One was is they were going to this one area for I want to say information on where the next of Valentinian's friends were. Or no. What they needed a particular book. We used astrology in order to find where the nearest volume was. Turns out it was in this giant ancient theme park ruled by a lunar who basically built Jurassic Park out in the middle of the frozen tundra, and she just had endless rows of books just in her little visitor center that she was maintaining, but no one would come to just because they were killer monsters just in her park that she had, and she thought they were cute, but she just had killer monsters. Um, I think that was the point where you guys actually deflected a cannonball.
yes, Magpie and Wolkenstein managed the one unambiguously awesome thing they managed to pull off. And this is when we met Alabaster Albatross, who was very heavily implied to be Scarlet's thought dead grandmother. And it was pretty much all but said, and I think the only person in the party who actually put it together was Scarlet herself, but she didn't really want to talk about it to the others.
Yeah.
And Albatross, uppercase, put an albatross, lowercase, around Scarlet's neck in the form of a curse, something that symbolizes severe bad luck, and had this huge, like, steam cannon weapon. And Magpie and Wolkenstein were like, guys, we got this. And they body blocked a cannonball. And
Not just
threw
body blocked
it.
it, they actually like high-fived in midair and blocked the bullet. And I'm like, okay, because the entire thing is there's a mechanic whereupon if you describe something, there's really not a, oh, you can or can't do it. It's a, okay, you want to do this. Tell me how you do it, and then roll to see if you do it. And so they're like, we're going to jump up, the two of us, we're going to high five, and that's going to block the bullet. He's like, all right, okay.
And they rolled really well, as I recall.
Yeah, and they did. So I'm like, well, okay, you stopped the cannonball. And they're like, yeah, we're going to send it back. I'm like, well, okay, roll to see if you catch it and throw it back. And they're like, yeah, and they do. And they throw it back at the cannon and blow it up. It's like, well, good on you guys. You did something I'm not going to take this from you. This is your victory. And as I recall, basically, Albatross was too busy messing with Scarlet at this point to really, like, do anything to anybody else.
Yep, and then Magpie summoned a Lord of Beasts, who was one of the dinosaurs, and it basically just tail-flicked Albatross Team Rocket style over the horizon. And then the Lord of Beasts, according to my notes, told us to F off and then blocked our number from his phone.
Yeah, because you guys actually called him by speaking his name too many times, and so he just showed up, just stomped over, smashed the rest of Albatross's zombies, and just kind of were laying into pretty much everyone around him at that point.
Oh, and then that's when I consulted Malgigi about the bad luck curse. And he essentially had me cobble together a good luck potion. And so to test the result, Scarlet tried to get lucky, and did, with Eshime. And the next morning, Eshime presents her an egg and is like, "This is our baby." And everyone expected Scarlet to turn around and run for it. And I decided to play against the stereotype, and Scarlet actually proposed to May. And the rest of the journey, it was pretty much set in stone that Scarlet was an engaged woman, and looking forward to returning to her soon-to-be wife upon the completion of the campaign.
Yep. I was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna see where this goes. You know, no one ever is gonna. No one ever really did, challenge me on the entire how did two women create
Lunars, man, how do they even work?
yeah. I'm like, you know what? That was my explanation. Like lunars, man.
I think I think I joked later on that one of my exalts wrote a book called a trilogy of books called Lunars. How do they work? Then it was Lunars. It turns out they don't work.
Imagine working. I mean, really.
How crazy!
I think my next character, Karis the Blade, kind of proved that. Yeah, you don't really.
Yeah, they don't.
But
Next, we were trying to go to Great Forks, which is an in-canon city. But our GM, who was Dietaku, decided to be way, way, way cheekier about the whole thing, and we ended up being transported into a tourist trap named Great Forks, Grate. And my note here is, I'm only surprised that I was surprised.
Yep.
So Gwen and Scarlet set up a stand to sell off-brand sunglasses, and apparently we ended up winning a surfing contest. I don't even remember that, but I have it written down here.
Yeah, you won a surfing contest. You summoned the Great Kahuna, who was a local celebrity, in order to surf off against you, as I recall. And that actually caused the actual leader of Great Forks itself, who was the Dawn.
The boss lady.
And it's like, look, you're going to have to buy a business license if you want to buy your bootleg merchandise. Only I can sell bootleg merchandise around here.
Yep. And, yeah, Scarlet got kidnapped from her hotel room in the middle of the night, and when she was tied to a chair and they started interrogating her, all Scarlet said was, "I charge extra for this." And that actually weirded them out, so they didn't want to mess her up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had... Oh, that was the duel. That's when the boss... Scarlet had to duel the boss lady. And basically, neither one could actually land a hit on the other because they were spec'd so similarly. Oh, this is when the Dragon Kings petitioned us for help, and I completely misunderstood what was happening. And I just walk up to this person to try to figure out what's going on, and Dietaku goes, "Hey, what color is Scarlet wearing right now?" And I'm like, "Red. What did you expect?" It's like, "Oh, well, he mistakes you for like a high-ranking naval officer." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can work with this." So I basically bluff my way into the situation without really even knowing what was going on. And I almost talked everyone there into leaving the grounds. And then all hell broke loose. Because then we had not King Ghidorah. And we found a war mech, which would have been great, except Wolkenstein was the one who got into the cockpit first.
Basically what happened is it turned out there was a contingent of Dragon Bloods from the realm. Basically the realm is... They're not supposed to be, but they basically are treated now like the Fire Nation from Avatar, where they're an incredibly fascistic, expansionist nation of elementally powered people. Not just fire; it's all elements, and they had a fort further into the island. And basically, it was a Bork stripped situation where they were just being attacked by endless waves of zombies, and King Ghidorah started attacking too, and they found a mech And yes, it was effectively Magpie who had it, and well,
No, it was Wolkenstein who got
was it
inside. It
Wolfenstein?
was Wolkenstein who was piloting it, and you tried to tempt him into pushing the nuke 'em all button. And I was like, no, don't push that button. I'm outside the mech. You will kill me. He was like, oh,
That's
I better
right.
not do that then because I'll kill Scarlet. And you were like, aw, you didn't push the nuke 'em all button. And I'm like, you jerk. He almost wiped me off the map.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that.
And this
Oh,
Lunar just starts like going to town on the Warmech's head, and I'm like, I'm gonna help my friend, and I stab him, like run him clean through his torso, and his head just like turns 180 degrees like an owl to glower down at me, and is like, "Is this your sword?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Is that your friend in the cockpit?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, will you leave?" And I'm like,
understandable.
yes.
Have a nice day.
Then I took my sword and I left because I'm like, no. If that did literally no damage to this guy, I'm not gonna win. So I'm just gonna run away and lie like I don't know you. And then, thankfully, I managed to find like this underground bunker and this huge, massive metal warship. And the thing is, sailing charms in third edition are really interesting, and they let you do some really weird and curious things that you might not expect. One of
Mhm.
the things you might expect, however, is I was able to claim the ship as my own, and I named it the Black Turtle, reference to ancient Chinese myth. And by the way, the Zebek that I had been piloting this whole time was named the King of Red Lions because, good jokes. And eventually we got away, but I don't remember. I don't remember if Wolfenstein really got messed up during that battle or not. I think he actually, I think the Warmech took it worse than he did.
Yeah, I believe that Malgigi actually had to, because Malgigi is just basically the smart guy. He effectively had craft, medicine, and sorcery, even though he was basically a magician. And he was like, "Hey, Malgigi, can you fix this? Like, this isn't really my wheelhouse, but I mean, I'll try." And so it took him a couple of weeks to put it back together.
Yep. And then our next clues, I believe, took us back to hell. And I think at this point was kind of when campaign fatigue was starting to set in because Scarlet and Valentinian were really kind of running like they had a fire under them. Because my notes are going really fast in this part.
Yeah, we find Orlando the lion, and he was basically going through hell, like just destroying everything in his path. And it turns out the reason why is because when we finally, get him and subdue him is because he touched a mech that has this seal on it.
Oh yeah, the do not touch this means use Zen letter that Master had written.
Yeah, which actually had a charm on it that would cause a bout of madness. Apparently, that's not good when you have an unstoppable, god monster exalt.
Yep.
That inciting madness is not a good thing. It's not good. Okay, it's
That's
not good.
bad. Okay. And
Social charms are not good.